On the coast of southern Spain, where the sea almost touches Africa, lies a city history books forgot. Here, the distance between Europe and Africa is only about 9 miles. That's 14 kilometers. On a clear day, you can see the other side. Baelo Claudia began to grow more than 2,000 years ago during the late Roman Republic. But its most important years came in the 1st century AD during the rule of Emperor Claudius. This was a time when the Roman Empire was expanding, trade was strong, and ships crossed these waters every day. This short distance made Baelo Claudia a perfect place for business. Tuna fishing, salt, and garum, a Roman fish sauce, made the city wealthy. It wasn't a capital, it was a working port, small but important to the empire. In the middle of the city was the Forum, the main square. Next to it stood the basilica, where officials met and made decisions. There was the temple of the Capitoline gods, and close by the temple of Isis, proof that this city was connected to the wider Roman world. Around these buildings were the market, the theater, the fish salting factories that made the city rich, and homes where people lived. The main street, called the Decumanus Maximus, led to the public bath and the harbor. And just outside the walls was the necropolis, the cemetery. All these ruins were once full of life. A city that mattered, then vanished from history. The Forum was placed at the meeting of the 2 main streets. It was paved with limestone from local quarries near the coast. The square was laid out during the early 1st century AD. Earthquake damage in the mid-1st century forced a major rebuild. This open space was where citizens gathered for news and announcements. Statues of emperors and local officials stood on carved stone bases. The layout followed official Roman planning used in imperial colonies. The Forum connected directly to the basilica, the temples and the market. Archaeologists have found inscription fragments and statue pedestals here. This square was the political and civic heart of the city. The basilica stood directly beside the Forum. It was built in the early 1st century as the main legal building of the city. Judges and magistrates sat on a raised platform at the western end. 3 aisles divided the interior, carried by rows of stone columns. A colossal imperial statue once stood inside as a symbol of Roman power. The figure seen today is a copy. The real statue is in the museum in Cadiz in southern Spain. The building size reflected the city's status as an official Roman municipium. It was used for legal cases, civic meetings, and official ceremonies. Its position next to the Forum shows how law and politics work together. The basilica gave local rule the weight and image of imperial authority. Above the Forum stood the main temples. 3 separate buildings were dedicated to Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva. These were the official gods of Rome. Every colony worshipped them to show loyalty to the empire. The temples stood on high podiums facing the Forum, so everyone saw them each day. This city followed a rare plan with 3 temples instead of 1. The design made the complex look strong and powerful. It was both a religious center and a political symbol. Beside them stood a smaller temple to Isis. Her cult came from Egypt through trade and travel. Sailors and merchants brought her here across the strait. Her temple shows that the city was connected to Africa and the wider Roman world. The market stood next to the Forum. Its central courtyard was surrounded by small shops. Archaeologists found drainage channels under the floor. Fish and fish-based products were sold here. Garum and salted tuna from nearby factories were traded in this place. Coins from North Africa and other provinces were found during excavations. Its position beside the forum linked trade with public life. The market was a key part of the city economy. The theater was built on the slope near the forum. It was constructed during the rule of Augustus. Local workers and slaves built it for the city. Wealthy citizens paid for the project to gain status and honor. The walls and seats were made from limestone cut in the hills north of the city. Some decoration was made from marble brought from other parts of the empire. The hillside held the rows of seats and gave the building its shape. The stage stood at the bottom with a wall behind it. Plays and festivals were performed in this space. This was the city's stage for power, story, and spectacle. This part of the city was the center of its industry and power. Here, workers processed huge amounts of tuna from the nearby waters. The round stone vats were used to salt and ferment the fish. Layers of tuna and sea salt were packed inside each vat. Over time, the fish turned into salted fillets, and garum, a rich fish sauce, prized across the empire. The walls were coated to keep the vats waterproof, and channels controlled the liquid. Once ready, the products were packed in clay jars and sent across the Mediterranean. These factories stood next to the beach, so the fish could be carried straight from the boats. This was the beating heart of the city's economy. This part of the city was home to the people who worked in the port, the market, and the fish factories. The houses were built using local sandstone. They followed a Roman plan with small rooms arranged around open courtyards. Most had one floor. Some had painted walls and mosaic floors, showing that not everyone here was poor. Cisterns collected rainwater, since the city didn't have private wells in every home. Many homes also had small workspaces, like areas for cleaning fish or making goods. The sea was only steps away, and the smell of salt and garum filled the air. Life here was simple, but tied closely to the city's trade. The baths stood close to the shoreline. They were built in the Roman style, with hot, warm, and cold rooms. Merchants and workers came here to wash, relax, and talk business. Water came through an aqueduct and was heated in furnaces. Even in the small city, bathing was a daily ritual. Just outside the city walls was the cemetery. People were buried or cremated here following Roman customs. Tombs of different sizes show both rich and poor lived here. It was placed by the road, so everyone entering the city passed the dead before the living.